All right. I'm going to see if I'm live, and if I'm not, then I will help the situation. And anyway, I should be live. If I'm not, then I shouldn't complain. That happens. Anyway, I'm live. So I'm saying, okay, are you spiritually delayed? Because most people that are born again are spiritually delayed. And that does not specifically say the older people, but that specifically says a lot of people that are like younger or inexperienced. Many of those can be spiritually delayed, not just because, well, they're not putting their trust in God. It's not just that, but they're putting trust in people. So let me get to the point here. Spiritually delayed. I know that some of you know what physically delayed or, things like delayed is all about. Most of you do. Like, for instance, I know some of you will know about this, but some of you really don't know about physical delays or mental delays. My mental delay was like when I was at the age of 3, I could talk with limited phrases and all that. Matter of fact, oh no, don't do that. Matter of fact, when I was 3 years old, I only knew maybe a couple words, maybe 3 words. I thought that babies could never speak, all things like that. Then when I was 7 to 8, I was literally, playing in the sink with a lot of water, playing with a hose, just playing in the sink with the splashes of water and waves in the sink, and I thought it was the coolest thing. Like, I thought just a sink alone with water was the coolest thing. I loved water, and the water was my only thing that I really liked. Then there was spiritual delay, which is not just speech delay. No, not speech delay, which is not the speech delay, but really it's what speech delay is what spiritual delay coincides with. It's not like spiritual delay, but here's speech delay is like you do not know words until you're 4 years old. Okay, that's what speech delay is. Spiritual delay is you do not know what's going on with God. You do not basically, if spiritual delay is basically people that don't get as spiritual with God. They just don't know anything much of the Bible. They're just kind of like people that are illiterate and all that with the Bible, and they don't know much. And whenever people tell them to do works for basically gaining heaven's houses, and basically they get like OSAS people get really jumbled up for you telling them to do certain works, not for salvation, but for the reward of heaven. And they really freak out. That's called spiritual delay right there. And basically, well, also, people that say, okay, I'd rather be with people in heaven, but not really with Jesus. I call that a spiritual delay. And many people have that. I've noticed that a lot of people have that. Even Tim Henderson has been wanting to be with certain people. I know you will miss people, but in heaven, it'll be very different in heaven. I know that for a fact. And not for salvation. I know that's I know not for salvation you have to be with God all the time, but to be really, to be doing God's will, you must also be having conversations with God. That's not salvation, like I said. I know that's not salvation, but you have to do the will of God by communicating with Him and having a like a like a like communicating with Him and relationship with Him, just to let Him you know He loves you, so He why must you not love Him back? That's called spiritual delay as well. And by not talking to God and having a relationship with Him, He does not question you, but a lot of people that know about that, which not many will know about it, they'll question your deeds, not by that, but by you just rather speak for yourself and people. Now, I would say there's pride for yourself And then there's pride for yourself because you only want others to be with others. There's pride against God, which is idolatry. Remember that, please. And then there's pride for yourself. So idolatry is idolizing other people into heaven. That is not good. That's another spiritual. That's like a spiritual delay that is dangerous. Actually, like I'm preaching it to you because I'm helping you. We're all broken, by the way. We're all broken. And idolizing other people because they want to see them in heaven. Now that's a mild form of idolatry, because you say, oh, they're so good that I want to see them in heaven. Well, like saying that to Johnny Anonymous, I know I made 2 videos about that, but I don't really want I don't wait I will not wait to see him in heaven. I would really rather see Jesus in heaven. I would like to have people party with me in heaven. That's a different story. But I'd rather do it with strangers and with my mother and father than anything else. Just remember that Jesus is the number one topic. I have loved Jesus. I have a love for Jesus that I want to talk about him with all the wisdom that he's got. David's pretty cool, but I want so with Jesus, I want to know all of the history that he has done, with all the things that things look like, because I had dreams from Jesus, by the way, about Babylon. First it was a Tower of Babel, which was all of one accord of people with, art and torches inside the building that looked like light bulbs. There were glass tubes in every hard to describe. I know. These people had all one language, and they lived a little bit longer than we did. And they became confused with their other languages. Now think about it. If you live longer, and if you have more of a same language, if you have actually the same language, then who are you to judge if they do not have the same technology as us? It may look different, I know. It may just look like bricks, and the inside looks like white brick, things like that. They may paint the inside very beautifully, and they may paint all of that just with glass and with a lot of brick and rock and all that. However, that is confusing to say. Well, people do not understand that God has all the history. He is a, again, our flesh cannot describe what God is all about. We all have limits. We truly all have limits. No one can perfectly say, oh, I can excel that. If you say, oh, I don't have limits, then you would probably have an IQ of 80, maybe a little lower, maybe a little higher. Because we all have limits. I have a limit of trigonometry. I probably wasn't good at math. Probably wasn't good at history because I don't learn by doing things like writing things down. I'm not really good at English. However, I'm okay at science. I can learn by science because I'm artistic. The one thing I really excel at right now is poetry and art. So that sucks for me because I don't have many jobs to really go by poetry and art, because that's not really what this world's made of, is it? However, those gifts are not going to be wasted because, like I go in a rabbit trail, but that my limit of that, I don't know what it is. I know I do have a limit of doing that, but it's constantly getting better. So someday I'll have a limit. However, God does not have a limit. He has no limit at all, except for doing evil. And he has no way of doing evil. He never was evil. So The guy is never wicked and he's never evil. But he is limitless. So, with his limitless mind and with his limitless spirit and wisdom, who can know the mind of God? Anyway, with Jesus, with Jesus, in the with basically what Jesus is all about is truly just, you know, his mind was heavenly, and he knows all the history and the past and all the constellations of stars. I mean, he could write all these books for us, and we would just be floored with all his wisdom. Now, he is definitely not delayed, but a lot of people are spiritually delayed. Oh dear. Yeah. One of the masks, okay, whatever. Might be, I don't know. However, basically, Jesus, our Christ, our Lord, wants people to acknowledge their weaknesses and also talk about Him, because people that really talk about Him, I used to know a guy that kept on talking about Jesus and salvation. He was trying to get me to salvation because he knew. Oh boy. Oh boy. Basically, what the person, the elderly person was talking about was, I know he wasn't spiritually delayed or anything like that. He kept knowing that I was weak and he wanted to give me salvation. And then by doing that, he prayed for me, and then that was his last years. And then, you know, I would say he's definitely in heaven, reaping many rewards. Now, I don't really particularly want to just meet him in heaven, just him and everyone else. I want to meet God, like I said before. Again, what causes spiritual delay or maybe spiritual blindness? That is caused by, quite frankly, not looking at keeping your eyes on Jesus, just talking and doing the will of Jesus. What Jesus tells you to do, you should probably do it so that you're not really attacked hard by Satan. You will be attacked harder, but you will not be dragged under the pit and influenced as much as you were to do God's will. By doing God's will, you're really protecting yourself. And Satan will try to attack harder, but God's will most likely be against that unless otherwise specified by his will. What is Jesus' will? That all men will be saved, right? But that's not really all it is. He wants everyone to be strong in the spirit. So many people that are weak in the spirit or spiritually delayed, many of them, well, they really have a lot of emotion. That's another thing that really gets people on the spiritual delay spectrum like that, People that just are really afraid of things or emotional when it comes to doing the right thing, or maybe just emotional when it comes to people talking about works. They get really all emotional about that. Like I said before, works does not get you to heaven, but works guarantees your safety and guarantees you reward. It really reaps you a reward. Not only that, doing the works of and the will of God and having a clean heart, not like just flesh heart, but like a beautiful heart makes a beautiful body. A beautiful heart makes a beautiful mind. A beautiful heart makes a beautiful spirit. It all comes in the heart. And if all you're thinking is about filth and sin and horror, and that's all you're thinking about, I know. Then really, if that's all you're thinking about, then your body will become even more ugly. Your face will basically get that look of not being as beautiful. The rest of your body will follow with it, and you won't have much of a beautiful body, except you have beautiful body, but will most likely be in vain. Just remember, people that have like a spirit and no, I don't actually. But how basically anyway, basically the people that are people that are basically ugly in spirit tend to not be as beautiful. Now the people that are truly beautiful looking and very wonderful looking indeed, and they're pretty much beautiful. Many people that love Jesus, let's just say, they don't just become beautiful when they're young. They do become beautiful when they're young, even though some of them might be ugly. But when they get older, you should see the beauty of the person when they're older, because they don't become like angry looking people. They actually become very loving looking people. Like you can see the love in their eyes and you can see the love in their face because they actually love God and Jesus and they love us, but more Jesus. They love Jesus more. And you can tell that they're not spiritually delayed. And a person that constantly talks about Jesus is not spiritually delayed. They're actually going from milk to meat pretty fast. So again, being spiritually delayed, that just means you're always on milk. You're not going anywhere but milk. And I hear about this a lot in the Bible about going from being on the milk of Christ to go to, you know, the meat. And why does Jesus specifically say we must eat the meat and not be drinking the milk? Well, or eating milk anyway. Anyway, how did the people in the olden days get to that knowledge? Well, they kept their eyes on Jesus. They kept their eyes on Jesus and kept on saying, Jesus, we want to be with you forever. They always wanted to be with Jesus. They always strive for Jesus. These people were Jesus freaks and they were always going for Jesus. Why was that? Well, the persecution was great. Why do they want Jesus more? Well, the more they wanted to be with Jesus, well, because of the world falling apart around them. And the church that first started was always persecuted because they were with Jesus. And the devil hated that so much that he made the world even a worse place for Christians because, well, the Christians started, well, it basically started and it was a new light that the world found. And there was more attacks to them than, let's say, a few people getting salvation in a day. So basically, what happened was God had to give a whole lot of people salvation, and it spread from like Jerusalem and Rome and all that to Africa, to Asia, to Europe, then to America, and then it spread everywhere. Why was that? Well, Jesus has his own ways. People become very much desperate for Jesus when they're under persecution because God had made it that way. The devil doesn't want us to really have salvation, but when Jesus made it a safeguard for us to have salvation, That's when people realize, wow, I have to be saved because of these people being mean to me. And what about the Christians? They actually, it's like the opposite of what, things like reverse psychology is like when people want to do the opposite of what is pretty much acceptable to society. When society says no, we say yes. So what is this all about? What is this? So really what that's all about is Jesus says, okay, anyone that is eating the meat, they must continue to eat the meat. Because spiritual delayedness, being spiritually delayed means you'd rather sip on the milk and rather just suckle on the milk than anything else. Because people just say, okay, I'd rather go with feeling. Well, it's like the more comfortable you are, the more likely you will, you know, be a person that doesn't really care for God, or maybe you're just, Christians that are comfortable, they're probably going to be spiritually delayed as well because the people that are comfortable in their daily living, they get so pampered that they become spoiled. And spoiled Christians are no good. Ever hear of America becoming Babylon? Well, we are pampered with Christianity to the point of becoming Babylon, right? So the more persecution there is, the more the church grows, really. And the more persecution there is, more people mature in Christ. And pampering is a deadly thing when people become selfish or that, like become leeches. When they become, let's say, selfish, spoiled, things like that. So people need to understand that if there is to be a true Christian that is really strong, like I was, like anyway, well, maybe a true Christian that's strong, maybe like diamond justification, especially people that were Satanists before, well, they will have a strong persecution from the devil, and that just makes them stronger because obviously they do not want to live that life anymore of people becoming evil and themselves becoming evil. What happened to Paul? Basically, what he did was he was literally one of the worst Pharisees out there. He was the worst Pharisee. He was the least of them. Then he became the top notch of a person that made almost all the New Testament, other than the 4 Gospels, and then John followed. He was the one that made most of the New Testament. And guess what? He was truly just phenomenal. Better than anyone else, actually. And then there was John, the apostle. He was speaking more about love until he got to Revelation. He was doing more about prophecy because he was having a gift of prophecy. Now, what John had to deal with was Jesus. What Paul had to deal with was, Pharisee. Now, John was with Jesus when he was very young. He must have been like a teenager when he was with Jesus, And he matured tremendously. However, in America, people don't have that luxury of being persecuted, of being evil. And instead they become, people are not really atheists, they're not really saved, they're just average. Now we have people that are gay, and then we have many people that are becoming true Christians in America that are staying away from gay and all that, And being a gay is like an abomination, really. The more you have that lifestyle, the less honor you'll have in heaven. Like I said before, this is not really Oh, I hope he does. Like I said, this is not going to. Oh, thank you. This is not going to. It doesn't mean that. Yeah, this is not going to. These people are not going to get the honor that God really intended, because a sinful lifestyle does not honor God. Instead, what honors God really is when you do the will of God, which is doing the things He tells you to do. And like I said, this is not for salvation. Doing the will of God is not for salvation. Doing the will of God is meant for people that have salvation, but does not get granted salvation. Now, if you die immediately after being saved, well, some people have. If you die immediately after being saved, well, then the amazing thing happens, and you go to heaven. And then if you get salvation, but then you go away from God for a little bit, and then after that, God will bring you back. You will never lose your salvation once you truly got salvation. Once you truly have a heart for saying, okay, I really believe that you died for me, Jesus, that I accept your gift, Jesus, and you have a true heart for that. That's true salvation right there. And, once salvation is in you, the gifts have the gifts will all automatically be there. And then the next thing you have to do is wait until God tells you to do certain things. He will tell you to be like listening. He'll always tell you to listen. And then after listening to him and listening to the Bible and listening to other people that are preaching, and especially about him and listening to him, then he will tell you to preach to other people and be a fisherman of people. And the next step after that is to tell the people that are saved what to do after that. And then after that comes the meat. And quite honestly, we have to tell the people that of people of OSAS. I mean, a lot of those people are spiritually delayed. Many of them have to get to the meat. And what that is all about is, they really have to understand that this is how God works and how God really intends for people to work with Him, because meat is meat and spirituality is spirituality. And my last point is, if you're not really with Jesus all the time, just listen to the people that are with Jesus. And then if you're not with Jesus all the time, just talk to him and always want to be with him. Always strive to be with Jesus. That's how you get to the meat. Because people always have emotions about, wanting to be. People always have the emotions to want to be, doing things for themselves and for other people other than God. Like I said before, idolatry is two things: for yourself and for other things other than God. For other people, you're proud for the people for being better than you, and you want to meet them in heaven. That's idolatry right there. And if you want to be only with God, and people are in the background, and people you find amazing, but then there's also God that you only want to be with for the best of the best, because He's the most wonderful, most beautiful God you have ever seen. Like, He's truly awesome and truly beautiful, and you really only want to be with Him, because people, used to be flawed, but they're no longer flawed because He made you no longer flawed in heaven, or He makes people no longer flawed in heaven. And when He does that, it guarantees He guarantees that you no longer sin. And He did the most beautiful thing to you, and He did the most beautiful thing that you could ever fathom, could ever imagine. And you worship Him for what He has done all for you, because He's done all the work He's done all kinds of work for you. He's really done so much work for you. He has no limit for what he can do because he's truly awesome. Jesus is the most awesome God you can ever imagine. Jesus is just more than everyone else. He is more than everyone else combined for all the awesome things he's done and the most perfect things he's ever done, the holy things he's ever done. He is all good and is all sufficient. He is truly the most wonderful God you can ever imagine. He is the almighty, awesome, perfect God, Omega and Alpha, just perfect, beyond words. If you want to know more about God, keep talking to him, and he will grow spiritually, and he will not be spiritually delayed. All right, I'll be done now, okay? Bye.